Good morning, and thank you to Dean Kendrick for that wonderful introduction and for inviting me to come here and speak today. You all do have the great fortune of being Dean Kendrick's very first class, and there is no one better to lead this wonderful community and institution, as you all will soon learn. My name is Chris Kavanaugh. I'm the United States Attorney for the Western District of Virginia, but what Dean Kendrick did not say is that I am a proud Section F alum. I'm Dean Blazer as well. I, 21 years ago, sat exactly where you all are sitting today. And my very first thing that I want to tell you all is to take it in. I do not recall who our orientation speaker was or what he or she said. And I think that's because my mind was elsewhere. I was nervous, I was excited, and I didn't know it already, but my time from when I had set foot in Charlottesville to the time that I was in this chair had already drastically changed, even though I didn't know it at the time. I had graduated college, I was 23 years old, and I don't mean to impress you, but I had secured a 2-bedroom apartment at Ivy Gardens all on my own. I had taken a year off between college and law school and traveled the globe, and I had declared in my own mind that I had found myself, that I am now an adult, I have arrived, no growing left to do. And in my own mind, one of the things that adults do is that men and women can live together as roommates without complications, as definitively established by the hit TV series Friends. I don't know why this is a thing for me, but this was a Rubicon that I felt needed crossing. So when the Ivy Gardens apartment staff asked whether I had a preference on male or female roommates, I said, you know what? No preference. Boom, adulthood. The summer before law school, I was taking one last trip, a solo Europe backpacking trip. How creative. When I received a call on the way to the airport, I answered, and a woman far more put together than I introduced herself as Jasmine. And she had seen my name on the list at Ivy Gardens, was looking for a roommate, and wanted to know if I wanted to live together. It was then that I realized that I was not an adult in the terms that I defined it, and I was not ready to cross that Rubicon. So I did what you expect of a 23-year-old boy who was not comfortable in his own skin. I blew her off. I told her I was going to Europe. We exchanged email addresses, and I said that I'd reach out to her when I returned. Handled. Boom. So I went to Europe, and in finding myself, I found that I was a serious extrovert who felt the depth and despair of traveling and being so dreadfully alone. So to escape that loneliness, I did what we would do back in the day. You would go to an internet cafe where you would pay a fee and you could check your email to see the emails that you had received from your friends and family back in the United States. I did that and I had no emails. Except for one, I had one email from Jasmine at the very top. So I clicked on it. It was just a few sentences. Jasmine said, she hoped I was having fun in Europe. Oh, how nice. But she had found another person to room with so that I didn't need to worry about reaching out when I got back to the United States. And she said in her salutation words to the effect of, it's okay, I didn't want to room with you anyway. Which may have been a genuine reaction, but in my irrational confidence at the time, I took it as playful. So I wrote her back, telling her how disappointed I was, how I thought we had shared a moment on the phone, and how I had rejected otherwise very attractive offers to room with me, all because I thought we hadn't made this connection. She emailed me back. She recognized I was being playful, and here was an email of back and forth while I was in Europe, and I remember that conversation more than I remember the trip. And this was how I met my very first friend at UVA Law. And as luck would have it, totally luck would have it, Jasmine ended up living in the apartment right beside mine in Ivy Gardens. And the day before orientation, we had met in person, and Jasmine and I drove together to this orientation, and we sat together side by side in this orientation 21 years ago. And now here I am, I have the honor and the privilege to speak with all of you. And over the years, Jasmine and I kept in touch. And when I told her that, you're not going to believe this, I've been invited to speak to the incoming class of 1L, she said, oh, how great. And she asked if she can come and support. And sure enough, here she is in the front row in support. two funny things is at first we eventually would room together. After law school, we got married. And we now have two daughters. We're joined by Zoe here today. Jasmine is currently unemployed, though. But things are looking up for her because in 2024, she was tapped by the President of the United States. And she will, here in this room in less than 2 months, she will be sworn in to begin her lifetime appointment to become a United States District Judge for the Western District of Virginia, the first federal judge we've had in Charlottesville for 20 years. I'm so immensely proud of her and never waste an opportunity to raise that. And you're all probably wondering, well, why aren't we hearing from her? Moving on. Second, I would later learn that the whole reason for this chance encounter was that Jasmine had picked me off a very long list of potential roommates on this list at Ivy Gardens, and she had identified my handwriting as effeminate. And therefore assumed that I would be neat. But little did she know that it was simply just a woman who was working at the Ivy Gardens apartment as the office manager who had written my information down that I'd given to her over the phone. We were joined at orientation by two other people on the other side. It was Mike and Nick, two other brand new friends with whom I met in the far more traditional sense. Mike was my second actual offer to room together, which I snatched up immediately so I wouldn't have to live alone. And then Nick was someone who I called out to from the balcony of our apartment in Ivy Gardens as he was moving in. I asked him, "Are you going to law school?" "Yes." Then I asked if he wanted to have a beer with me and Mike that evening. So the four of us were there together in orientation. And I didn't know it then, but the four of us who had just met would go on to be lifelong friends. I'm on a daily text thread with Mike and Nick, and the level of discourse has not markedly changed since we were also still here in law school. But all of this to say is that you are all on a ledge of an experience that is going to shape the rest of your lives. Dive in. You are forming friendships and relationships that you will carry for decades to come. And I'm so excited and a little bit jealous of all of you. So my very first piece of advice is to take it in. Take it all in, recognize this moment, and enjoy it. Second, think about books and their covers. And notwithstanding some of these new friendships that I had, I was still terrified of what was to come. I was not only a first-generation lawyer in my family, I was the first generation even to go to college. I grew up in a small town in North Carolina, and I really only knew other colleges from watching sports. After meeting a few folks in my small section, I'd never really heard of places like Brown or Dartmouth or Cornell or Williams, and I'd never heard of certain prestigious scholarships that some of these people had, and as far as I thought, they were all just made up. I met people from what I assessed to be very fancy schools or affluent backgrounds, people whose mother or father or grandparents were in positions of prominence or a long line of lawyers. And I remember feeling out of place during my first few weeks here. So if you feel that way or you start to feel that way, it's okay. Because what you will soon learn, and what I learned, was that none of that mattered. And I was surrounded by people of diverse backgrounds who've been thrust into a new environment, and where you are all uncertain and tentative, regardless of schools or backgrounds. And we were all going through the very same thing on the same playing field. And we were nervous and excited, not only about meeting new people, but about learning a completely new discipline. And here is one mistake I made. I made many, but here is one. I think maybe I judged some of those books by their cover a little too quickly. If you are here today, you probably have started to understand that you have a type of person who you are naturally drawn to. Quite the same is that there are probably a type of person that you're like, you know what, that's not the type of person that I'm going to seek out. People's types can be different. I'll be frank. For me, I remember meeting someone who had a bit of a lax bro vibe. And, he drove a fancy car. I remember that he clearly was or would have been an enthusiastic member of his undergraduate fraternity. This was not necessarily the type of person that I thought that I would connect with. And I soon learned that I completely misjudged this person, who they were and what they were about. And they ended up being one of my very closest law school friends. And after I realized these things, and after I kind of flicked the chip off my shoulder and just remained open to meeting new people, to accepting new invitations and having new experiences, I fell in love with this place, and I realized I was surrounded by such amazing and remarkable people. And I think you all will too. But it wasn't all the highs that I remember about my time here at UVA Law, but it was also a place where I struggled in ways that I never had before. I remember after my last 1L final, I was so excited to go out with my classmates to celebrate the completion of our 1L year. That is a fun time. And it was then, right after I finished my final, that I received a call from my dad. And he said, "Christopher, you need to come home. Your mom is sick." You see, I'd been studying and taking 1L finals, and during which my mother's cancer, which she had been battling for years and which we thought had been in remission, had come back with a vengeance. My parents knew how much school mattered to me, and they wanted me to succeed, so they made a decision, one that I respect, not necessarily one I agree with, but they made a decision that they were going to let me finish finals so I could focus on those, and as soon as they were over, they would let me know what was going on so I could come home immediately, and I did exactly that. My mother died about 2 weeks after I had gotten home from 1L finals. But what was worse is that this was in 2004, and this is the beginning wave of the opioid epidemic that has really hit our country. And as my mom was struggling in the last weeks and months, a doctor had overprescribed her OxyContin, an addictive opioid, to manage the pain. My mother refused to take these pills, so they started to pile up in our house, and my father began taking them as a coping mechanism during her last weeks and months. And by the time she died, and we were dealing with the immediate aftermath, my father had been seized by this opioid addiction. And that this addiction would continue after her death, as a doctor, motivated by profit or otherwise, would continue to feed that addiction with prescriptions. I never publicly shared this part of the story until I became United States Attorney, and I started to think about how we are ever going to try to win the battle against opioids in this country. And I firmly believe that we have to get over the stigma of addiction, because it does not discriminate on the basis of status or class or race or gender. And we can't get over that stigma without talking about it. And although my father would go on to defeat it, at the time, this addiction had arrested him, and I felt robbed of the opportunity to grieve the loss of my own mother. Instead of grieving her during the summer between my 1L and 2L years, I had to try to pull together the pieces of my own family, which included handling the innumerable burden of logistics that people have to deal with when someone passes away unexpectedly. Visitations, funerals, gravestones, finances, all of that. And towards the end of the summer, when all of my friends were enjoying themselves in summer associate positions as interning for the government or volunteering for nonprofits, I received a call from Jasmine. And she asked me, "Chris, when are you coming home?" And that struck me. She said, "When are you coming home to Charlottesville?" And I still remember my reaction to that. Home. What a peculiar word. I'd always thought that Belmont, North Carolina was my home. But when I got back here in the fall, and my entire class had known the tragedy that I had suffered over the summer, my friends, and the love and the support that I felt from all of my classmates, I had realized that this place was home in a way that I never truly experienced or felt. And although my class was special because it was my class, it was not special in the fact that each class of people that come here, that come through this place, like you here today, you all are self-selecting, and you are impressive, warm, and downright wonderful human beings who are part of a community. And I am deeply grateful, and one day you will be grateful, if not already, for being able to be a part of this special place. So be careful about trying to know too much about books from their covers. Don't spend any time thinking that you know someone or their story because of what school they went to or what background they may be. Spend time investing and learning each other, because one day, perhaps many days for the rest of your life, you will lean on them and they will lean on you. There are a few other points that I want to make today that I can't leave without. Next, most of you are all planners, or at least some good size of you are all planners, and you often think about what lies ahead. And I consider you all as kind of being on a spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, you have those who know with certainty what kind of lawyer they want to become. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have those of you who don't have the foggiest idea what kind of lawyer you want to become, or any kind of clue what kind of lawyer you want to become, or even if you want to be a lawyer in the traditional sense. And this is the group that I want to talk to first, because most of you are amassed on this side of the spectrum. Those of you who came to law school because you didn't want to get a job, or you didn't know what you wanted to do after college, but you were good at school, you wanted to keep the good times rolling. And most importantly is that you heard that a law school degree only opens doors. That's a sentiment which I believe is absolutely correct. And I want to make sure that you know that most of your classmates reside on this side of the spectrum, and that's absolutely okay. You have time. There are no majors or minors here. If all goes well, you'll be graduating with a JD in what you studied or what you dabbled in or what you tried or what you did during your summers. None of that will define you as the type of lawyer or professional or person that you become. So take your time, be open, don't rush it. For those of you on the other side of the spectrum, that's great. That's great. That's where I was. I knew that I wanted to be a federal prosecutor. And when you know what path you want to pursue, or you think you know, there is, I suppose, some strength in that. I laugh because I remember meeting someone in my section first week, and they were like, I want to be a corporate lawyer. I was like, this guy is focused. This guy has it together. But in retrospect, I now know that that is a hilariously broad term, and I don't even know what that means here today. And it's the folks who think they know exactly what they want to do that I'm actually a little bit worried about. So be open. Take a class that may not completely comport with what your plans are. Maybe try out something in the summer that's a little bit different. And if you find something new you want to pursue, great. If you don't, great. You at least take the time over the next 3 years to explore. Recognize that you are still growing and changing, and so too will your perspective grow and change, particularly as you gain life experiences and as you learn from your professors and each other. And by the way, that growth will never stop. Changing your mind, whether it is about your life's path or your position on a particular issue, is a sign of strength, not weakness. And it took me a long time to learn that. Next, grades. Let's talk about them. By virtue of you being here, it's highly likely that you have obtained good grades and think that getting grades is a good thing. However, when you are in a class full of extremely impressive and high-achieving people who are graded on a curve, some of you will get grades that are lower than others. It's just math in the most basic sense. And the odds are that you are going to experience academic disappointments that you may not have experienced before. Going back to my friend Nick, and I promise I had more than 3 friends in law school, but going back to my friend Nick, I remember him being so disappointed when he didn't make law review, when he wasn't selected for law review. And I remember him sharing that up until that moment, when it ever came to something in academics, he had never not gotten anything. Not for me. I had experienced plenty of academic disappointment at the time, but it was new to him, and it's new to a lot of people who come here. So I want to let you know that it's going to be okay. When I look at some of the most successful people that were a part of my class, those who have gone on to do great things, whether it's general counsels or CEOs, positions high up in government, leading a nonprofit, many of them struggled in law school. Either it took them a while for it to click, or maybe it never did from a grades perspective. But none of that defined them when they chartered their own successful career paths and the people they became, and you should do the same. Grades can't, and for all of you, they won't define you. Finally, my last piece of advice is you do you. I remember softball being a part of the culture at UVA Law. It still is. And I felt a pressure to play it in my small section, which was good. But I was not good. And I didn't want to be embarrassed. And you know what? No one cares. Play softball or don't. No one cares. You do you. The same thing applies to what classes you want to take. The same thing applies if you want to go in the public sector, but you're feeling a drag to go in the private sector because everybody else is going to law firms. You do you. There's only one person to whom it truly matters about what path you take, and it's the person who's taking it. So you do you. Now, as you all learn if you take trial advocacy, before a jury retires to deliberate at the end of a trial, you want to leave them with a few points so that if they forget everything else that what you said, at least they remember those few things. So if you're a good trial lawyer, you draw attention to the fact that you're concluding. In summary, take it in. Be careful with books and covers. Enjoy the highs, but sometimes the lows matter just as much. If you don't know the path that you are going to take with your law degree, join the club. It's okay. Recognize that your perspective and you are still growing and changing. Grades won't and can't define you, and you do you. But above all else, recognize that this is a special place. And through your hard work and a few things breaking your way, you had the good fortune to be admitted. And through your excellent judgment, you decided to come here. And I am thrilled for all of you. I welcome you to UVA Law in this community. And I sincerely hope that this place becomes a home for you in a way that you've never truly experienced before. Thank you.